All right, and best. All right. Can everyone hear me okay from up here? Great. So welcome everyone. It's terrific to see this huge turnout, although not surprising given all the outstanding work that Professor Floridi does at the Digital Ethics Center. I'm Ted Wittenstein. There are a number of people on Zoom here, so I'm going to talk to the Zoom folks as well for a minute. But I am Ted Wittenstein. Welcome to the Jackson School of Global Affairs. I'm director of our Schmidt program on artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. And it's a real pleasure to partner now for the second year in a row. So we've done something right with partnering with the Digital Ethics Center. I'll introduce Professor Floridi in just a moment in offering this introductory series of workshops in the fall semester. So just a few quick administrative comments about the workshop. Obviously, there is a lot of demand, which we're happy to see. In general, you can see that this is a 10-part series. All right, so it will be meeting on Monday afternoons at 5 o'clock at this time. We will be meeting not in the GM room of the Jackson School, but in the seminar room at 46 Hillhouse Avenue across the street, Greek columns next to the admissions office. And, we want this to be more interactive, intimate setting. So I think definitely see if this is for you based on the introductory session today. In general, we want people who will be actively engaged throughout the 10-part series. The way that this is going to work is that you will register the week before, okay? But we'll obviously be keeping an eye on people who are returning and active participants and who want to be part of this kind of thriving interdisciplinary community focused on challenges in digital ethics with a particular focus on AI issues where Luciano has been a real distinguished leader. So at 5 p.m. on Tuesdays, we will open up the registration for the following Monday, okay? So keep that in your mind, set a little clock or something if you really want to make sure that you go. And we're going to pick about 30 people on a first come, first serve. With an eye, though, towards those who are returning and engaged in the sessions, okay? So Tuesdays at 5 p.m. We are recording those sessions, all right? So if you are not able to make the 30 or you're not in town that day, there will be a recording so you can kind of keep abreast with the 10-part series that we're offering. And it's open, though. It's open to the Yale community. I see a number of faculty colleagues, scholars, practitioners, students here. We want that interdisciplinary mix. I think we had almost every school at Yale represented in the workshops that were offered over the course of this past fall. And I'm happy to see that the sort of word of mouth is spreading in that regard. Okay, so that's the sort of general administrative plan for the workshops. But before I say a little bit more about what we're doing and introduce Professor Floridi, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions about that from an administrative standpoint. All right. Yes, please.
Nothing we need to write for that registration. It's literally just our name.
Yep. It's a pretty simple registration. If this really proves to be a challenge, we might up the bar by asking for statements of interest. But in your case, a Jackson MPP student who's in the Schmidt program, right? I mean, these are things that we are aware of, and we will obviously tailor the workshop to those who are most interested and most engaged. And it will be, but it's a 10-part series, and it's not for credit. All right. So I see a lot of students in here. We're not giving you grades for this. In fact, in the Schmidt program at the Jackson School, we offer now, Luciano knows this, we offer 8 courses now through the Schmidt program. And I actually see a lot of familiar faces who are in those classes, and that's where you should go for credit. Okay. In addition to that, as Luciano will likely go into, the Digital Ethics Center is sponsoring an extraordinary amount of research around campus, both in year as well as summer opportunities for students. And so because of that, again, there are a lot of opportunities for you to continue to work with the Digital Ethics Center in a number of capacities. I do think exposure to the workshops, engaged performance in the workshops, will introduce you to a community of scholars that likely will assist in some of the for-credit or other research opportunities that you might wish to pursue during your time at Yale. But the Digital Ethics Center is a strong partner of the Schmidt program, where we're offering a number of other teaching opportunities for credit. So if you want to talk about those, you can find me or Professor Floridi, or I see Dr. Montiero in the back, who teaches his own course in the spring on AI regulation and governance issues between the Jackson School and the law school. So that would be the place to go for the grade, all right? So I'm trying to weed out our numbers here by not giving you an A or B or C or anything, no credit for being in the workshop. But it's a community of scholars, and because we're offering it at the introductory level with no prerequisites, we are really putting digital ethics front and center in how you think about challenges in emerging technologies. Okay, so ethics is something that I'm particularly passionate about as making a core function of the Schmidt program at the Jackson School. But around Yale, we have a number of faculty colleagues that Professor Floridi and I work with in computer science, data science at the law school. We need to build ethical evaluations into a wide range of teaching and research that we're offering here in the Yale community. So that's really the genesis of offering this at a kind of no prerequisites, introductory session, open to everyone. And of course, the goal is really just to understand a number of the headline news transformations that we're seeing with respect to AI and emerging tech, but to have a deeper philosophical grounding. And there's no one, I think, who's better equipped to do that than Professor Floridi. I'm delighted that we were able to recruit him from Oxford last year to found the Digital Ethics Center at Yale. He's not just the founding director of the center, he's a professor in practice in cognitive science, and before that at Oxford, he was a professor of philosophy and ethics of information, and really kind of defined a founding father of the field of digital ethics, thinking about how core enduring principles of philosophy translate to modern day technologies. At the center, he has published more than 300 works on the philosophy of information, digital ethics, AI ethics, philosophy of technology, and it's 300 and counting. So I encourage you to check out the Digital Ethics Center website and learn more about the publications that are being churned out among the scholars, many of whom are here almost on a seemingly weekly or daily basis. So it's a voluminous productivity, and it's really exciting to have that research focus at the heart of the Yale community as a partner of the Jackson School. So I'm not going to say anything more except thank you. I'm going to ask Luciano come up here to kick off the first workshop, give you a flavor for what we're doing. Again, the second one will be only 30 people max at 46 Hill House next Monday at 5 o'clock. And tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we will open the registration. Okay, but I look forward to seeing a lot of familiar faces here during the session and in the weeks ahead. So Luciano, thank you for being a partner of the Jackson School.
Well, thank you, Ted. That was an amazing introduction. I think you covered also some of the things, luckily, that I want to tell you about the center and what we do. They were really, I'm going to show you another couple of slides. I mean, what you can read there, I won't waste precious time sort of presenting it, apart from maybe the acronym, the first line, the G and the E and the L and the S and the I. That stands for governance, ethical, legal, social implications. That's the short way of describing what we do when you talk to someone who says, okay, why do they pay you? Yeah, what are you doing? And say, well, I do is Emmy here? No, I haven't seen it. No. Okay. GLC, Emmy insists, one of our members, in calling this GLC, but I insist on GLC, and GLC will prevail. Anyway, it's so new that we don't even know how to pronounce it. But basically, the European culture already has ELSI, the ethical, legal, social implications of digital technology. We added the G because we think governance, and we are in the right place. Oh, we did that before coming here. So, but we thought that governance was too important to be missed there. And also sounds a little bit like a flower, so that sounds good. So GLC or Gelsomine is what we do. And we do that in line with what Ted said. We don't try to learn, understand, teach as a goal. There is a means towards advancement of knowledge. So whatever we understand, whatever we study, whatever we work on, it's a way to push the boundaries of what we know and what we don't know. Hence research. Sometimes people get a little bit confused. Oh, learning as research. No. Learning is what you do in order to do research. So the goal is to know more about things that we haven't yet understood, explored, etc. It's a bit of a pioneering work that we do, and that's the difference with other centers that are around. You may have heard that there are other places around the world, not as important or as well established as Yale. There's something at Harvard, I believe, something at Princeton, something at Stanford. I mean, other places that we don't want to mention for their lack of relevance in this context. But they do try to do something over there as well. Not as well, of course, as important. Oh, I've been trained to do this for 35 years when I was in Oxford versus Cambridge. Is always the same story. So there's always another Cambridge somewhere, which you obviously disregard. Quite rightly. So they do try to do something like this, but what we do is a bit more pioneering, meaning that the advancing of knowledge, what we attempt to do is to capture trends that are not already visible at the economist level or New York Times. So we do not work, for example, on bias in AI, because also my uncle is working on bias in AI, okay? So it's not something like, oh, what a wonderful thing. Who ever thought about bias in AI, etc. Yeah, I'll stay straight, yeah. But back to us, multidisciplinary home for researchers here at Yale, a Center of Excellence outside. This is not the topic. Oh, that's so annoying. Let me just try again. Yes, that's not the topic for today. The topic for today are these three sections of the whole lecture. As you probably saw from the program, at least some of you, I'm surprised you're here, to be honest. But we will be talking about something that is not very attractive. So apologies in advance, and I would not take offense if halfway through you want to leave and you say, oh, this was a mistake. I thought it was talking about something else. No offense taken. I'm serious. It happens. You misunderstood what it was all about, and you have better ways of spending your time. Should that not happen, either because you're too polite or because you are remarkably interested in what we're going to do, these are the three blocks that we're going to cover. I won't look at anyone, but some of you are smiling, thinking, oh, he's joking. No, I'm not joking. This is going to be really boring. So, when you go to the dentist, says, this is going to hurt. It will hurt. I'll talk about some intuitions, first of all, that we need to remove. Unfortunately, even these days, you find, especially in philosophy, people relying on intuitions. That is where you start from, is not where you arrive at. You start from intuitions, sometimes in order to drop them, sometimes in order to drive you. They are heuristically useful. Hardly ever they are actually what you end up with. If we were working on intuitions, we would be living on a flat planet. We don't, and that intuition is not very helpful. That happens also in ethics, in technology, and the development of science. The sooner we start using our intuitions, but also mistrust our intuitions, the better it is. In order to do that, unfortunately, we'll have to introduce something that helps us to cope with the counterintuitive nature of the world in which we live. without running into the usual problems. Relativism, no, anything flies, or scientism, oh, science says so, it must be so, my intuitions are wrong, etc. So we will have to find some way of balancing the view, call it the scientific view of the world for the philosophers among us, if there are any, what Husserl wrote in The Crisis of the European Sciences, and our common intuitions, things like, he really feels that way. I think that I don't think so. I really feel that this thing is annoying, for example, or that AI seems to be so intelligent. My intuition says so. That is where I will introduce, not in too many words, the concept of lenses. Now, I'm old enough to be on Facebook. I know I've been told that that is something that most people don't do anymore. On Facebook, at least, there are memes that work around, and there's this guy who normally with a red jacket that looks at something with a disgusted face, like lenses. And then he looks at level of abstractions. Okay, we will do exactly that. We will go lenses. Please don't. From today onwards, if I'm successful, you will never, ever use the concept of lenses. It's a bad idea. It's a bad habit. It's pseudoscience. And anyone who uses that feels he's doing methodology. No, it isn't. It's a bad metaphor that just makes sure you don't have to justify yourself. Since we're doing science and scholarship, you do have to justify yourself. And therefore, we have to shift to something much more serious for the computer science here. Levels of abstraction. It comes from computer science and is how to do, should we say, lenses properly. I'll show you why. And once we've done this, this is the methodological introduction of how to approach problems. I need to approach problems having the right level of abstraction. I miss that, we may as well give up entirely and completely. I'll give you an example, and then I start doing a little bit of work for real, which also means I will take the liberty of removing the jacket. It's too warm here. Before removing the jacket and do some work, imagine someone's asked you whether the building at the corner is the same building. And John says, yes. Mary says, no. Who is right, who is wrong? Unless you tell me, why are you asking that question? What for? What is the level of abstraction at which you're asking a question? Because if you're asking in terms of constructions, material, position, it is the same building. But if you're asking about function, no, it was a school, now it's a hospital. So it's not. Oh, then anything goes. No, no, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't, because it depends on why you're asking a question. If you're asking in terms of geographical location, the one person that says, yes, it's the same, is right. And the one that says, no, is wrong, as in not right, doesn't fly. But if the question is in terms of function, well, the one who says, yes, it's the same, is totally wrong. And the one who says, no, etc., etc. So you get the picture. Unless you determine what is the framework for the physicist here, that is like, are we still talking about this after 100 years? Yes, we're still. No, social sciences, we're catching up. But now, for anyone in physics or in the hard sciences, unless you have a frame of reference, there is no need or possibility of speaking about speed. There is no such thing as speed, full stop, velocity, without a frame of reference. It doesn't mean that therefore anything is relative, no matter what some people, and I heard people saying that, in the wrong context, Einstein, etc., etc. So with that under the way, I'm not sure whether we'll finish today. I might need, because we don't have an enormous amount of time today, I might need to finish next time. Then we will do a little bit of actual work starting close to the problems. If this is all that remains in your minds in terms of one day there was this guy with British/Italian accent talking about lenses and level abstractions, and all I understood is that I should never use the concept of lenses, job done, you may leave now. So I'll take off the jacket, but this is the right time to leave. I'm serious. I'm going to turn. You don't have to. Okay, that's too late now. Okay, so intuitions. And I'm going to go through this quickly because this is the amount of light that we see is the tiny little narrow band perception from cosmic rays to broadcast band. We don't perceive it. It doesn't mean it's not there. That is our world, visible light. pathetic. I mean, we don't even see ultraviolet and infrared, which some animals, as you know, are perfectly happy to enjoy. Sound doesn't fly, so to speak, much better. Infrasounds, ultrasounds, that is the narrow bandwidth that we have, human auditory field. Again, our intuitions, the world we see right now, and you hear right now, that is the world for each of us. And the moment we go out of this room, that will be the only world that will ever exist for us. But in the back of your mind, you know, or at least you've been reminded now, it's a strange universe out there. How we know? Well, science, etc. But you can't simply say, "Oh, my intuition says so." Now, it gets much worse. There is also no stuff out there. This is. Let's see if I can reduce this to. No. Someone better than me. But this is what you get in terms of going back to with this machine. Please. When you sit on your chair, look up and look down. This when down is when the universe was very, very young. 380,000 years old. It was nothing, like a few seconds in the life of the universe. He had more hair, basically. No, it wasn't getting bald. So there was only 63% of dark matter, whatever that is, because we're not quite sure. No, we are inferring it through a number of calculations that there must be that amount of dark matter in order for the rest of the universe to make sense. That is growing, and the number of atoms moved from 12% to 4.6%. At the risk of making the physicists in the room cringe, it's all empty, mostly. I mean, there's no stuff out there, okay? It's fields and so energy and interactions, but the stuff that you want to have, something hitting each other, well, you had to have some hundreds of millions of dollars experiments in order to make sure that those particles actually hit each other, and they normally miss. Because, well, it's all empty out there. So there's nothing there. There's much more noise that we can perceive. There's much more light that we perceive. And unfortunately, we also, as we speak right now, every hour, in fact, the hour that we have, we're moving at roughly 2 million miles per hour. It doesn't feel like that, does it? But how does it, why? I mean, though, first of all, we're spinning. So that's a lot of movement. Then we're spinning around the sun, which is a lot of movement. Then the sun and the whole solar system is moving. And then above all, our galaxy is the fastest of all, is moving fast, really fast, through the general framework of the universe since the explosion. So I hope that we can keep going. Or my wife, the neuroscientist, will give you extraordinary, beautiful experiments. She's chair here. Is the reason why they got the philosopher. They had to get the neuroscience, the genius. So bring the philosopher. It doesn't matter. It doesn't cost that much. We come cheap compared to the neuroscientists. Even our attention is, if you haven't run the gorilla experiment online, please do. I won't exploit that. I won't spoil that for you. It's extraordinary. So we don't pay attention. We don't know. We have no idea. The sound, everything is way counterintuitive. So what do we trust, science or common sense? Because on the other hand, try that when you have a painful experience. You just at night you went to the bathroom, you bang against that place. Oh, don't worry, 2 million. The sound is that it's all empty. Well, it's all empty, but that really hurts. So normally what happens is that I was reminded, when a man with a 45 meets a man with a rifle, the man with a pistol will be a dead man. That's an old Mexican proverb. If you haven't seen the movie, and I'm learning through painful experience that there were even people last week that had never heard of Blues Brothers, so let alone a fistful of dollars. So if you haven't watched a classic, recommendable, including the Blues Brothers, just in case. And Alain Delon was a famous actor from another century. End of the education. As you know, Clint Eastwood is the guy who actually wins in the end. He has this reference is essentially for any scientist who believes that science provides the true understanding of the world. When a scientist with a rifle meets a common sense person with a 45, the guy with the rifle wins always. Mexican problem. Well, I will spoil the movie for you. Not true. In the end, Clint Eastwood wins against the guy with a rifle. But the idea is that essentially the science has a long range, better view. That is the way the world is. You're wrong, we're right, get a grip. Not so. First of all, we would like to have some pluralism here. Is it possible to have, remember, I already gave you the solution anyway, two positions about the building at the corner, one that says it's the same, the other one says it's not the same. They're both right, depending on the framework. Doable, if we are careful enough. Can we do that, however, so introducing a pluralistic view about the world without falling into the trap of being relativistic? Because that is the trouble. Now, as soon as you start getting into it depends, boom, you open the door to, oh, my view, your view. Well, you say so, but for anti-vax, no, flat earth, well, no, of course they're wrong throughout. And I won't even mention anything about voting for the president of the United States. I mean, of course they're wrong. Careful, Florida, careful. No, you never know. There might be some insane people in the room who are then definitely invited to leave right now. But there is right and wrong. So you want to be pluralist, but you don't want to be relativistic in your pluralism. So you want to be able to say, look, there are different ways of analyzing this system. And by now, system is whatever is out there that we want to analyze, without opening the door to anything goes. My view, your view, no, cultural relativism, nothing exists, or science is a discourse. Seriously, a discourse, like poetry. You must be joking. But so how do we put these two things together? One way is lenses. Social scientists have discovered this. I asked the usual suspects to tell me who came up, and it's been a long search even before, trust me, before COVID. I've been trying to identify who came up for the first time, or at least in an influential way, with the concept of lens. Oh, you need to adopt the right lens. In this thesis, we look at, say, social media through an economic lens. And so I supervise multis, I can remember with those lenses going all over the place. The entry in Wikipedia is not very helpful at all. Critical lens, anyone here who wants to do some real work, please fix that entry. It's at least yesterday, no, today is another day, might have been changed, but it's not helpful at all. Claude, identify Alison Assister, a British philosopher and feminist theory, as the one who actually make it popular. It's possible. But when I asked ChatGPT-4 to sort of check, said, I'm not sure, I wouldn't commit myself. And Gemini was, well, yes, but only within feminist theory. So we don't really know, or at least I don't know, and I'm happy to support a specific paper, where lenses came from, is publishable. It's a piece of scholarship. We're not quite sure, but I hope that some of you at least have heard of these lenses before, relentlessly. Now, normally, what comes with the lens is a certain kind of pseudo-scientific attitude. I have a method here. I'm talking about lens. No, you don't. That's just another way of saying, I'm going to look at this from my perspective. Call it lens, job done. A bit unfair. There are some advantages. This is what a lens in a more analytical context looks like. You adopt a theoretical framework, sufficiently specific, say, for example, an economic lens, or a communication lens, or a neurological lens, for all I know. It could be ideological, for example, it could be a Marxist, or it could be a liberal or a capitalist, hardly ever, perspective, approach, through which your particular system or subject is examined, interpreted, evaluated, analyzed, etc. It looks like a little bit like a physical lens because it gives you a particular view, that you have decided is valuable, preferable, the one you're going to adopt. Advantages. Some. First of all, it's flexible. You can lens anything you like in any possible perspective, upside down, catch me if you can. And it's simple. Even a philosopher, okay, can look like, I have a lens. It's a methodological lens. It does help interdisciplinarity. You can bring more lenses on the same subject. Normally say, Jane Austen, one of my favorite writers. So you analyze Jane Austen and characters in Jane Austen from a economic perspective, for example, or gender analysis. Okay, it opens up to what I told you before. Now, you have multiple ways of interpretation. So you could say, look, my lens says that my commonsensical lens says that we live on a flat Earth that doesn't go anywhere. Of course, the scientific lens says that it's not flat, it's round, and it's moving to a million border. It offers the researcher's perspective, so you can be a little bit more upfront. There are people who adopt lenses without even telling you. Contextualize, comparative analysis, all good stuff. The bad stuff is longer. First of all, it oversimplifies. You lose the nuance ideas. I have a lens and, this is my hammer, and anything looks like, through my lens, like a nail. And this lens hammer will nail everything in its place. Try gender in Jane Austen. Everything becomes a gender issue, anything. Or Marxist analysis of Jane Austen. Or, fragmentation, my lens, your lens, catch me. Normally, it's the lamplight kind of thing, or lamppost, that's the wrong file. I'm going to look there because that's where the light is. That's where the keys. Usual joke. I lost them while looking under the pole where the light is. Well, that's the only place where I can see. So I adopt the lens because that's exactly what I want. I want to talk about, say, gender balance in Jane Austen. But I can't simply say that's what I care. That's what I'm interested in. So I'm going to have a methodological lens, which is a gender balance in Jane Austen. So totally predetermined outcomes, subjectivity concerns, like, well, why you? I mean, a number of people, say Italian, who have decided that they were interested in Italian economy, say, yeah, for example, I don't know, I'm inventing. So why, PhD student, why are you studying Italian economy? I'm Italian. Who else should I be studying? Or if you want to change, I'm looking at the distribution of the internet and the development of the internet in the Philippines between such and such time and such time. Why? Well, I'm from the Philippines. Well, so if you were from somewhere else, you would be studying in Spain, or it's not totally subjective. So I'm from there, that's what I'm studying. Decontextualization, historical, cultural, take that lens and like a hammer, boom, on that poor Jane Austen, who wasn't maybe thinking about Marxism when she wrote what she was writing, the working class in Jane Austen. Poor Jane Austen. And relativism, that is the beast. My lens, your lens. Because it's totally arbitrary. I've never seen, at least in my own limited experience, someone using a lens and say, the reason why this lens is better than another is because. Remember when I told you about the two, interpretation of the same building? Is it the same? Is it not the same? Well, my lens says it is, your lens says it is not. End of the story. No, because the question originally, the purpose for which I was asking, is it the same, determines whether one is right and one is not. And it makes no sense whatsoever just to say, country you go, culture you find, lens you enjoy. This is terrible. The lack of justification here is really what bothers anyone who is epistemologically minded like myself. Because I need to know whether this is pluralism or under the carpet is actually a relativism. Now, once you are into a relativistic context, why is that bad? It's not because you cannot play, but because there are no rules. You can never determine whether someone did the right thing, the wrong thing, does it make sense, does it not make sense? Anything goes. It's like playing chess where there are no rules. Oh, I play this way. Well, yeah, but you can't play with me because I don't have any idea how, for example, the queen is moving and whether the queen can take 3 pieces in one go. Oh, that's my rule. So relativism is our enemy. And to fight that, we can get into something more serious, the levels of abstraction. So imagine the levels of abstraction are a little bit like grown-up lenses, okay? Once you stop thinking that always simple, easy. I just put on this pair of glasses, that pair of glasses, and I do whatever I want. No. You have to justify. You have to be precise. What their lens is, why their lens is. So at some point, you need to tell me why you decided to abstract, more in a moment, from their system, those features that you think are important. Because if you tell me it is the same, you abstracted the feature geographical location. And that's what justifies your it is the same. But your answer now is completely different. It's because you abstracted one other feature which is not the same, forgive me, because it's function. So your level of abstraction is function-based. The other person's level of abstraction is geography-based. Who is right, who is wrong? Well, it depends. We'll see this in a moment, probably not another 15 or 20 minutes from now. The purpose that justifies the choice of the level of abstraction, which then gives you a model of the system. See that we're now talking a little bit more precisely about anything goes, but more on this in a moment. Step back, and this may look like hopefully a little bit of a computerized thing. If you need to have a specific kind or implementation of a level of abstraction, that is an interface, as in computer interface, or say a mobile phone interface. A mobile phone provides a certain specific kind of information with some shapes, some colors, some ability to interact with this, not others. I've seen some of my colleagues and members, for example, at the DEC, having a black and white interface with a mobile phone. Mine is in colors. I know that I can change that interface. Can I change the size of the icons? Maybe some interfaces allow that, some others don't. Can I change the number of icons on a single screen? Again, some interfaces do, sometimes don't. There's a maximum limit. More on this, but think in terms for the next 10 or 15 minutes, what does it mean by level of, or whatever it means, interface? I hope that is a little bit more intuitive. So an interface is what we would call, more technically, an epistemic level of abstraction. Epistemic comes from Greek, episteme, knowledge. It's just another way of saying knowledge-related / knowledge-based level of abstraction. No, shortcut, nothing to be worried about. The philosophical discipline that studies in the most abstract way knowledge is called, in fact, epistemology for a reason. So imagine we're now introducing the level of abstraction. Imagine that you go to a used car place, and this should be sufficiently generic, and I ask you the price of a car, and you say 15,000. Is that a good level of abstraction? Terrible, because I don't know whether it's $15,000 or, for example, British pounds or euros. It could be camels, as far as I know. So 15,000 is a figure that is missing one crucial element. It's type. Now, type variable, anyone has done any logic, any set theory, any maths at all, any computer science should know that ring a bell. So more on this in a moment. Level abstraction is a gathering called set of elements. Each element is made of a particular type and a particular content of their type. Normally, it could be a figure, a number, but it doesn't have to be. So in this case, we're using numbers, 15,000. That is the variable, which has as a type, for example, dollars, which makes a big difference now if it is British pounds or something else. So type plus content of their type, the variable, a typed variable, put several of them together, and you have a level of abstraction. So the level of abstraction here is only one, is price of the car. I don't care how old the car is. I don't care how fast it goes. I don't care about the maker. These are all level abstractions. Oh, and I can put them all together. So you can have a single level abstraction that says type variable price, type variable maker, type variable mileage, type variable You start getting a little bit the sense here. Of course, someone will say, oh, look, no, it's intuitive. I'm in the United States. Grice conversational rules. Someone has done a bit of philosophy, especially in Oxford, Grice, a local hero. famous, by the way, Wikipedia famous, so no, out there. All context, that should be enough. Surely, you know, if you go to a car sale place, that's not true. This is a typical example, the best I found, but it's November 1999, Mars Climate Orbiter crashes into Mars. It's $125 million worth of wrong level of abstraction because Logging Marketing was using imperial units as a use metrics. Would you believe it? How idiotic was that? Oh, well, they were just assuming. Now, surely, it's like the assumption that I'm lucky that I was born on the 16th of November. Had I been born on the 11th of November, there would have been no problem. Had I been born on the 10th of November, coming from the UK to the United States, November, before or after, it would have been a complete mess. In fact, one of our members, a postdoc, has already now run into that problem. European, day, month, year. United States, no, month, day, year. It does create on your logical thing, but that's the way it is. No, okay, conventions. Why month, day, and then it doesn't matter, but that's the relation. So whenever you go to the hospital here, your date of birth, and I'm learning November 16. I don't go 16 of November. No. But like many of us are lucky, there is no way of making a mistake because the typed a variable, for example, month, takes only from 1 to 12. If we put 13, that type will not accept the 13. You get it? It's as simple and as stupid as I'm saying it. So, unfortunately, as you can tell, it's not enough silly not to lead to these kind of problems. This, had they shared the same level of abstraction, they would not have lost $125 million. Now, imagine this is a context where you have type variables in terms of signs. Can you imagine what happens when you transform this into the legal system, when it's way more, if you like, complex, fuzzy, nuance, where my type could be crime and the specific variable could be, say, underage, overage. In which circumstances? In which legislation? It gets way more subtle. And if we can get it wrong here, how much more easily can we get it wrong in any else context where there is no clear-cut sense of the type, the variables? So intuitions are not enough. Relativism. This is the original London underground map. Is the map, by the way. So fantastic system, 1908. And you will see that it is quite peculiar. You probably haven't, no, unless you have an interest in these kind of things, you didn't see it before. Because this map is drawn of whatever system is under the ground, called the underground, the system. This model representation of the system is for engineers. It's people who want to have the real distance between two railway stations. So this can actually be used to calculate how long it's going to take from here to there. Now, anyone has ever tried to use the underground to go to the airport and discover that, yes, it's only that much space on the map, but it's actually not 25 kilometers. So it's going to take 45 minutes of the, is in panic enough to know that the real map doesn't give you the real distance. It also tells you where things go, curve, etc. Because if you want to repair the underground, you need to know where to turn and so on. But it's useless for anyone who wants to drive, get a ride through it. And this is from 1933. All the underground maps in the world have been like this. What's the different level of abstraction? Well, the previous one, call it the engineer type variables. These are the user or travelers type variables. Anyone here says, what is the right map? Has been sleeping for the last 15 minutes. Not because there is no right map. No, we leave that to people who have no idea. But because you need to tell me first what the question is. Do you need it to travel or do you need it to fix it? I need to travel. This is the right map. What about it? No, that's the wrong map. I need to fix it. This is useless. You need the other one. This is abstract. Remember, it picks up only some type variables. No, essentially where the underground lines intersect. That is a crucial variable. So I need to change from line 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So it's concise, not sufficiently simple to use it, has to be complete. So everything that I need is there. It's unambiguous. I can't make a mistake like, oh, what does it mean here, there, and so. Easily maintainable, comprehensive, cost-effective. It's what you want if you are traveling, not if you're an engineer. It's horrible. You just don't use it. Having said that, there is also another way of doing it. Once you learn, well, how about doing something different? In 1964, they started drawing this kind of London Underground map. And this is what happens. Since 2007, you can have, these are all the same maps, as in the system that they are modeling is one. They are modeling it, picking up different levels of abstraction, different type variables, different functionality, different purposes. So which one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maps that I've shown you is the right map? Please don't ask absolute questions like that. As I said in the past, apparently memorable, absolute questions, absolute mess. It doesn't mean, therefore, that there are no answers, but the answer have to be justified by the context. And it does not mean that any context goes. Contexts are justified by the purpose for which. So, in other words, your epistemology has to be teleological. It has to have a goal, telos, Greek. No goal, no epistemology, no sort of level abstractions, total mess, Lock-in Martin kind of an answer kind of level. My metrics, your metrics. It doesn't mean that there is no metrics, as long as we get not on the same. Underground Maps Unravel is a whole book on maps, etc., you can get in case you really are into this kind of things. And I don't know, train spotting and birds watching and stuff. So suppose you join a party over there. Suppose you join a party. Oh, it's going to be more of this. So anyone who wants to follow the example, this is a good time. Now, I'll give you 2 minutes. I like the hardcore here. No, I'm going to show him. I'm going to stay here until the end. So you join a party and they're talking. You don't know what they're talking about. That's the topic. One of them says, Anne, is a buyer. She says, look, it has an anti-theft device installed. It's kept in the garage when you're not using it, and it has had only a single owner. What is it? Well, you just hear someone else. Ben is a mechanic. Well, whatever they're talking about, the engine is not the original one. The body has been recently repainted. The leather parts are a bit worn. Try to guess what that is. I mean, those are 2 levels of abstractions. There's a third, not the bias level abstraction, not the mechanic level abstraction. Remember, these are English ways of talking about type variables. And Carol is an insurer. So her level abstractions is engine, does it consume much or little? Engine consume too much. Market value, type. High, low, stable, okay. And spare parts, type. Expensive, variable. They could be talking about lots of other things. So these are the analysis, the observables. Oh, by the way, observable is a very unfortunate terminology chosen by computer scientists who are or can be as messy as anyone else. Observable gives you the impression that it's something that you can actually see. No. An observable could be, for example, the health of a democracy. Low, medium, high. Health of democracy is the type. Low, medium, high is the variable. Obviously, you cannot see it. Is an observable as in scientifically observable, part of the things that you are considering. As I said, I'm reporting terminology from computer scientists. Is an unfortunate sort of mix and match of terminology. I hope you get it. So the observables are this, and they could be talking about motorbike. It's exactly fine, but they could also be talking about car, or they could be talking about airplane. You don't know. Now, for the philosophers or scientists here, this means that data underdetermine theory. Or in different ways, you may have a huge amount of data that amount of data doesn't tell you that theory A, motorbike, theory B, car, theory C, airplane, is the right theory. No, we listen to Anne, Ben, and Carol. We still have 3 different interpretations of the same observables. Now, if you keep going, unfortunately, there is a stable feature of science. Science is also about interpreting your best guess, coming up with what makes more sense today, given the data we have. But the data that Newton had and that Einstein had, now being pretty much the same, led to very much different perspectives. Of course, the more data we have, imagine someone finally join us and Jess over there says, it has 4 wheels. Oh, thank you. Okay, fine. So it's not an airplane, it's not a motorbike, it has to be a car. But you may not even know whether it is an SUV or a sport car. Or, see, it underdetermines your theory in a way that is narrower, more specific, but it still undetermined. So for any of you who has heard, I hope not, because this is pornography you should not be exposed to, there is the end of theory. That was popular a long time ago when I had actually a discussion at MIT with the gentleman who was proposing it, but I forgot his name, luckily. Yes, Anders, thank you. Well done. About Google. No, and there was like search engine said, now all you need is, who needs to generate hypothesis? You just crunch a lot of that. Of course, the same debate is happening today about AI. Who needs theory? Oh, you just click and go, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the debate is as old as Francis Bacon, beginning of modernity, when poor Francis Bacon used to say, all you need to do is torture, those were the days, torture, literally, torture nature enough, and it was a she, torture a she, and she will give up her secrets. Meaning data, data, data. That brutal, elementary, rather simple-minded, I need to remember that I'm also being recorded. That's a bit late now. So apologies to anyone who's listening to this, just in case. Apologies for everything I said and I'm going to say. The idea that you can extract enough data and the data will give you the theory is simply not viable. If you understand anything about level abstractions, purpose, questions, etc., etc. So my recommendation is not to engage with a debate which is just useless. No. Oh, and by the way, since we have had it already 3 times in modernity, I do not have any hope that we might not have it again and again in the future. No, at some point, someone 100 years from now will say, all you need is data. No, but it doesn't matter. So in computer science, data science, etc., abstraction has a quite specific meaning, which is very close to what we're saying here, is information hiding. It's almost like saying, look, I could have everything about this particular system object. I just decide that something is not worth seeing, that some observers are removed. Now, I like the optimism, the omniscient view from which you remove some information. I think the reality is that we always have limited access to the amount of data available, the endless amount of interpretations of those data. So it's just the other way around. It's not that we are hiding information, but it's more like we don't have it. But this comes from a designing perspective. So I have to design, say, an interface for you for, say, a thermostat. What kind of information should I give to the user? And what information is not pointless? I just had a flat tire and they gave me a different car, real stuff, last week. And the interface was horrible. Everywhere it would give you, no matter what you were doing, the temperature outside. That was the most important information that the car was providing you. Not how many mileage, or whether they had enough petrol, nothing. It was like temperature. Like, I don't care. I mean, it could be freezing. I mean, if I don't answer, but there was no way of removing that yellow, flashing, big. It was like temperature outside. Clearly, someone did a poor job in information hiding. They could have provided a different kind of type variable. What's the type? In their case, Celsius, Fahrenheit. Again, be careful. And a particular sort of number under that type. They could have just hidden that. They didn't. They decided that was the thing you really wanted to have. No, how fast you're traveling, whether there's a camera that's gonna pick up your speed, etc. So in programming, the process of making accessible details of an object or function, usually in order to reduce complexity. The complexity of someone is driving, who doesn't care, cares more, for example, about the speed limit, rather than, it's freezing outside. No, it's a bit warmer now. No, you're entering a colder area. Like, no. So, still on the topic, I think everybody here has had the experience of a motion detector somewhere, maybe in a garden, assuming. So this is important because he also introduced another concept, which is not just the level abstraction, not just the type variables, one or more than one of which constitute as a set a level abstraction, but also the space of observation. I already introduced that with this silly example of the building at the corner. What is the space of observation here? New Haven, or a limited area of New Haven. I wasn't talking about New York, for example. I wasn't talking about the Colosseum. Now, this can be a little bit more precise, and it also helps you to understand why a lot of the world for us is not within our normal experience. So imagine that we have one particular motion detector that has only one type variable, movement. And that is the type, call it M, and it has only two, say, possibilities, yes or no. It doesn't care whether fast, how many miles or kilometers, does it move or does it not move? So it's a simple, really elementary gadget. Has one perceptor, the observable is type, movement, variable, yes or no. It doesn't get 1, 0, it doesn't get numbers, it doesn't get kilometers or miles, it just gets yes or no. The other one is a bit more sophisticated. It has a combination of two type variables. One is the movement, as before, but also the other one is infrared radiation. Basically, does it exude heat? No? Is it a warm body? Now, for anyone who has a garden, crucial, you like the second one. Otherwise, the light is always gone. Because that branch of the tree that is moving will be picked up by the first level abstraction. It's moving. The second one, having two variables, not two type variables, will not switch on because it's not warm. It's not the cat. The cat moving and warm will trigger the second, not the only branch that is moving. So your space of observation in this case is your garden. You have a walled garden, let's imagine. In that space of observation, there are three objects. It's a very simple garden. One A, one B, and one C. Take the one single level abstraction, the one that monitors only movement. That picks up two objects, the branch and the cat. I hope those are the examples I use in the slides, but you get it. The other one picks up only one. So, oh, look, what do you mean? Like, I have a more sophisticated level abstraction that picks up less stuff there? Yes, precisely. If you have a more sophisticated level abstraction that is called a microscope, well, then you can only see a few things. You don't go around the world with a microscope. So imagine our visual system. Remember the first slides? We are ourselves, our bodies are a specific implementation of an epistemic level of abstraction, meaning that we perceive a certain sort of scope, a specific area of type variables. When it comes to hearing, wait until next month because I'm going to get my apparatus. I will be hearing much better. Seeing movement around us. If it is an earthquake, we will perceive it. But all this, miles going around, nada. So this is us. This is our implemented level abstraction. Remove something, and we might actually perceive more. Add something more, and we might actually perceive less. So imagine that you add more in terms of diversity, say, and all of a sudden you perceive only some kind of sounds. Add different kind of glasses that, of course, color everything blue, and boom, everything. So the spatial abstraction is clear. What about C? C is a stone in the garden. It's not perceived, captured by the level of abstraction 1 because it's not moving, and certainly not by level 2 because it's neither moving nor warm. So what about the ontological status of C. In other words, does C exist? The stone, not for L1 and not for L2. And if all the universe contains only that garden, only those three objects, and only those two-level abstractions, the stone does not exist at all. End of the story, finish. It's not there. What's the difference between us and the gorilla, the snake, the butterfly, the bat, etc.? Is that we build technology. So we might actually spot the stone because we can change level abstraction. That is what makes us utterly special. We can have a macro. We can perceive or have observables as infrared, ultrasounds. Not naturally, not biologically, because that's the body we've been given by nature, but technologically, because that is the body we have acquired, quote unquote. That is special. I mean, there's no snake that goes around saying, no, this ultra-red, I'm fed up with that. Here's my glasses. So the point here is to, one, have an ontology means theory of the ultimate theory of what is or is not in the world. Again, a branch of philosophy. And if you want to know what is there or what isn't, well, it depends a lot of the level of abstraction. So imagine you want to say, look, wherever I go, I don't have to believe in God to say what I'm going to say. If God is an entity in the universe, is everywhere. We don't have the God, is here but not there. So it's saying is omnipresent, everywhere. It means that, translated in our own terminology, there is no level of abstraction at which there is no God. That would be God existing in any possible world, everywhere. This is a logical analysis. I'm not a believer, so you don't have to follow me on this. It's just a matter of logic. If this entity exists everywhere, it means there is no logical possible way of observing something without that thing being there. It might be actually a reason for not thinking that there's such thing that is everywhere, but you get the gist, I hope. So there are two ways of existing for the sensors. One is the interaction. For level 2, you have to interact a little bit more with the world. There's change, movement, but also heat, and one property. Now, this is also, for the philosophers, two different ways of doing another word for ultimate theory or theory of ultimate reality, which is metaphysics. The long story about the terminology, not very interesting. So we may use the two terms interchangeably. A lot of philosophers do. I will sort of restrict myself to use metaphysics for the bad stuff and ontology for the good stuff. So metaphysics is when you go around thinking there is something out there, and what is your level of abstraction? No, in absolute terms, that's metaphysics. Like anything goes, okay? Ontology is when you have your level of abstraction and you tell me, look, according to this level of abstraction, there is a stone, there isn't a stone, there's a cat, there is a branch moving, etc., etc. So depending on how you are inclined to look at the world, you may decide that something exists because it has a specific property. For example, it occupies space and time. Or you may decide that that is not really my definition of existence. My definition of existence, something exists if I can interact with it. At that point, for example, an icon that is interactable exists as well as, or even more than, a watch, or something that is on the other side of the universe with which we will never be able to interact. There are objects that are so distant that it doesn't matter how much and how fast we travel, they will always and forever be beyond the reach of any interaction. Do they exist? Or, well, it depends. No? If you're an interaction ontologist, say, no, I can't interact with them. It doesn't. If you are a property ontologist, yes, of course, they have properties, for example, but they are in the universe at that time or that space. So back to us. There's a lot more to be said here, but not today. Let me just skip that because I've already tested your patience long enough. Almost there. So we have our garden. That is a space within which we are operating. There's something in the garden. Whatever is out there, whatever is under the ground, traveling the underground, whatever is the stone, the cat, the branch, the two buildings, or the one building there with two description, we call it a system. It's not an ideal terminology. Different disciplines use system for different purposes. This is as good as it gets. But if you find other textbooks or other people talking about system in a different way, that is unfortunate, but it's fine. As long as you understand something that I'm going to discuss, analyze, my subject, the topic of my discourse, if you are more in the literature sort of context. You have to have a purpose for which you are undergoing your analysis. For example, most of our apparatus in terms of perceiving type variables is survival. You want to hear the noise, you want to see the snake, you want to hear the lion coming, or the car sort of crashing on you, etc. And since it doesn't matter whether we perceive the world not moving 24 hours, etc. But if there is an earthquake, well, that's good enough. So maybe, you know. So I'm oversimplifying in a silly way of making a point, but whatever the purpose behind that particular analysis understanding, it has to be explicit, because that is where the comparison happens. Remember, is it the same building or not? Oh, by the way, for the philosophy again, is it the same shape or not? Because that, no, belong to someone, and we change every piece, we change, no, every plank, every element. Is it the same or is it not the same? Taxpayer perspective. The taxman comes. They say, oh, I don't know if it is the same. Well, I don't care. I understand you pay the taxes. Oh, I change everything. You pay taxes. Collector, worthless. You change every piece. So is it or is it not the same? Absolute question, absolute mess. Is it the collector's perspective or the taxman's perspective? Then you can compare and decide who is right and who is wrong. So purpose. The purpose determines the level of abstraction. So am I the collector? Am I not the taxman? At which you analyze the system. The level of abstraction generates a specific model. Remember all those maps of the underground? Those were models of the same thing. The underground, London, there. The system, model at different levels of abstraction. What's the purpose? Well, if it is ease of use, the engineering, so on. The model will pick up some features of the system. We call it structure. Now, all this terminology I said is a little bit of an attempt to make sure that we are on the same page, at least for this set of meetings and lectures and so on. But trust me, people talk about system, structure, model interchangeably up and down. So it's a mess. We don't have no water, H2O, water, and everybody who disagrees doesn't know their chemistry. So it doesn't work that way. But at least we understand each other. If you prefer to switch system, structure, it doesn't matter. As long as you have those 5 pieces with those 5 no particular relations. So the structure belongs to the system. A theory is this block. A theory is made of a particular intention or a purpose. I want to understand how fast things fall when left alone, in a vacuum. No. I need to know how life develops, and is there an ultimate DNA kind of structure somewhere? Then you adopt a particular sort of level of abstraction, which could be biochemical, it could be geographical, it could be social, it could be in terms of literature, it could be, you name it, model, structure. That block in the sort of cut away kind of part is where your theory works. The system is there. There is something, and probably stop here in a moment, that is important to understand. Commitment. Last difficult concept for today. The philosopher will be acquainted with this. Other people may never heard of it. A theory says, I believe in this, and this is what I know, the hill on which I'm going to die, to use the usual metaphors that we use back in the deck. That is your commitment. That is what you say, either this or the theory can go, legs up. That commitment happens in 2 steps. First, by choosing the level of abstraction. Is it the same building? Someone says, I'm going to commit myself to a functional perspective and say, no, school, hospital. And the other one says, oh, I'm going to commit myself to a geographical level abstraction. I'm going to say, yes, it's the same place. It's always been there. And in fact, actually, our building has been moved. So, for example, one could say, no, it's not because it was elsewhere. But let's assume it hasn't been moved. So you can choose a different level of abstraction. That is your commitment. So imagine that someone says, Jane Austen, I'm going to have a Marxist analysis of labor in Jane Austen. That's your commitment. That's what going to bring about results. If you're wrong, that is where you're wrong. Because someone wanted to know, can you please explain to me why Jane Austen is still read today? Or because of the Marxist analysis? Maybe that's not the best angle, or maybe it is. And the second moment where you are actually committing yourself is when you adopt the model that is generated by the level abstraction. You might say, look, this particular level abstraction is good, but the model that it generates, not so much. I need to revise that. But once you decided that, given why you're asking that question, this is the right interface, okay? And the model generated by the interface, the, if you like, picture of the object is the right picture. Those two moments, that is where you stand up and win the battle or die on their hill. And if you got these two things wrong, you're done. So that's why we move on in science, because someone at some point either proves that your level of abstraction was wrong, there's a better one. Same reason, no? You don't change the purpose, otherwise, no. But given the same purpose, I have a better level of abstraction, better type variables to account for what is going on. Or, and sometimes it's and or, someone tells you, okay, given the level of abstraction, however, look, the model you came up with is not good enough. You squeeze either not enough or the wrong kind of juice from that interface. One, two, or both, and you move on in a paradigm. If it's both, then you have a shift in paradigm. The world is never the same. For example, people have been collecting data on stars and planets going around the world since the Egyptian and so on. We had a huge amount of in fact, Tycho Brahe, depending on how you pronounce it, had tons of data, but they just couldn't make sense of all the data, the system, because they have the level of abstraction of which the Earth had to be at the center. So the so-called epicycles thinks that in order to make sure that you could keep the Earth at the center, had to be crazy. In other words, the geometry had to be really fancy. Things have to go up and down and turn and so on. Now, anyone in this room who knows a little bit about geometry, it can be done. It's doable, just about doable. It's just that it's insane. So you start thinking, you know what, that idea that the Earth is at the center and we make everything else move around, how about, we change the level of abstraction? Same data, same purpose, who is moving around what? These are the data collected by, tons of people there. And then you have Copernicus say, well, I have a solution here. We change the level of abstraction, and therefore we change the model. That is a revolution. It's called revolution in science because of Copernicus. The book published by Copernicus is called About the Revolutions of the Stars and the Planets. Since that moment onwards, people started thinking that revolution meant what we mean today, French, American. It didn't. It meant going around, revolve. Same word. So at the time of Copernicus, it was like about how things go around each other in the planetary system. But because it was such a paradigm shift, it became a matter of, oh my goodness, if this is a Copernican revolution, is seeing things upside down. And from that moment onwards, Kant included, who actually makes this so very popular, you forget to talk about the sky in terms of revolution. You start talking about socio-political and economic upheaval. But that's what it means. It means changing, keeping the purpose, keeping the system, changing the level of abstraction, changing the model, getting a completely different structure, and boom, the world is never the same since then. So with that, a simple example. So suppose you decide to buy one kind of car, like a Volkswagen Polo, for example, something that is your first commitment, the commitment to a level of abstraction. It's a type of car. It's not that car. But then you buy a that specific car. That is your model. and that's the one you drive. So the 1, 2, you first committed yourself to a particular level abstraction of all cars. I want to have the one that satisfies Volkswagen Polo. But then you went to and you adopted that particular sort of implementation, the model that came out of their system. Okay, so that's the general picture. What is in it for us going forward? Quick summary, and we'll stop here, and then there's a bit of time for Q&A if anyone wants to stay a little bit longer. We have until 6:30. Don't use lenses. As you can tell, we are at Yale, for goodness sake. It's a place where we should be careful, precise, scholarly accurate. You can't simply go around, lens this and lens that. Because as I told you, with lenses, it's not wrong, it's everything's right. It's a bit like saying, oh, this key is a magic key, opens all doors. You know what? There's something wrong with the doors. There is no such thing as lens opening all possible doors. I can do whatever I want. I had to drop a PhD student back in Oxford who didn't quite get that. She did get a PhD. She's no longer in academia. Rightly so. So no lenses, please. At the same time, no absolute terms either. Do not ask absolute questions. Is it not the same building? Is this the right? Even in politically speaking, the right vote, apart from some extreme cases, one of which is in my own country, for example, when you have a right-wing insane people in power, but within the bandwidth of a political system, there is no such thing as the right vote and wrong vote. It's depending on what question you're asking. For the economy, given the historical circumstances, given the war is right now here, for example, or hopefully not. So even where it comes to socio-political discussions, you need to be able to understand what is the frame of reference, the interface, the right level of abstraction at which you want to operate. And then you have a commitment. You decided that was the right reason to ask the question, that was, if you like, the right question to ask, that was the right sort of interface to get an answer to that question. And that is the right outcome of that analysis in terms of model. Remember the NASA, Lockheed Martin, they got two different levels of abstraction. They had the same question, how to land this thing on. Two different levels of abstractions, two different models, total disaster. Now, if that happens, as I said, in hard science, when you have numbers, functions, high-level complex calculations, can you imagine when we in social science, we in humanities, we in much more complex, less, way more subtle, way more nuanced context, how easily it is to shift. So as when you are ice skating, your skates have to be sharp like a razor. Otherwise, you are all over the place. The more slippery the field, the sharper the tools. So as my wife says, the neuroscience, like, thank goodness I'm not a philosopher. I mean, you guys, how can you possibly cope? It's so slippery. Everything is so nuanced. It's so easy. Well, that's where you have to up your game. I don't want to be too congratulatory towards the people in humanities and social science here, but in a way, it's much easier to do science. Having said, no, you have to understand. But when you're wrong and when you're right more easily than in other contexts. The parameters, as it were, the limits, the constraints are a little bit more obvious. You can prove things at some point, even that. You can't prove anything in social science. You can't prove anything in philosophy. So it's not the usual picture, wishy-washy. No, it's the other way around. The more subtle, nuanced, delicate, slippery the topic is, the sharper the tools, the more careful you have to be. Because you can't simply go 2 + 2 = 4. You wish, but we can't. And anyone who thinks so has mistaken the role of the different disciplines and what they do or they don't. So the level of abstraction has to be way more explicit, carefully crafted, justified. At that point, and as the final comment, we don't have to buy relativism. Not true that anything goes, because given the purpose, the abstraction, the model, this is right and this is wrong. But unless you give me the whole story, we will never know. And we are in the land of, I think so, you don't think so. Now, this is crucial, and that's the first one, because of course, ethics is exactly where we are going to work. Ethics is full of disagreements, nuances, different values, millennial cultural history that has tried to distill what is right and what's wrong, what is the good life and the bad life, what are the kind of society that you want to live in and the kind of society you would rather avoid or run away from. And in that context, you need this kind of terminology and this care way more. You can't even simply assume that, oh, look, I'm doing physics anyway, so clearly these are the functions there. We can't be that sort of relaxed. So I will not be going back to this on a regular basis for everything that we're going to say in the next 9 meetings, but this should be in the back of your mind. What is level abstraction? Why are we asking the question? Is the model the kind of right model that is coming from that level of abstraction? Could I have a different level of abstraction that is as good as or even better than in answering this question? If we get that, then we're making progress. If we don't get that, well, then there is just a mess in the land of obscurity. And with that, I stop for any question that you may have at this stage. Thank you.
Sign up next week at 5 p.m. It's the link. You can look up the workshop links. It's both on the digital ethics center page as well as
Yes. Yes, you can visit our page, just DEC Yale, and there's a page dedicated to the workshop. You can follow the link. Yeah. Any questions? I think we also have food. I think there's potentially some food waiting for us. Next week. So next week there will be food. Have a good day. But anyone has a question, please come. Hi there. Yes, okay. So 5 minutes? Okay, I'll see you inside. I'll try to be otherwise. So it looks like that. I don't know.
How you doing? Good to see you. See you.
I write my thesis. I'm writing CS professor, we've got a little very laser. Now we have a whole kind of can of worms. So what does this mean from an ethical society perspective? It's like, what if we ran AI on it? So how are you doing that as well? So I'm not going to answer all those questions, but it's getting up there.
Oh, it's all nice guys here. So that was our Yes.
I got her classes last year.
Absolutely. Yeah, whenever you're free, you know, they love it. Lunch that I can do stuff, maybe any other. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, sounds good.
So I'll get a little down there. I heard Not in the department this year. I'm really just going to CS classes again. So I did a year in college. Now I gotta go do the thing I signed up to. Which is pretty awesome. So just right now, I just said bye. Get it done, and then hopefully it'll be easier in the spring. So regardless, just want to say hello before you step out. So if there's anything as well, related to CTI that might be a bit of science, I run all the permanent mailing with good. If there's anything you're like, I'd love you to come to CS department. Send it to me, I can send it to all of them. So, awesome. Take care, Doctor.
How do you like